All right. Hey guys, this is Walker Zimmerman here. This is The Locker Room, Episode 2. We have a very special guest today, Dejan Jakovic. And before I introduce him, I want to remind you guys about what The Locker Room is, what Episode 1 was like. And so I mentioned 3 goals last week when I had my special guest, Aaron Kovar, on air through a Skype call. And the 3 goals were that you guys could walk away with either learning something new, finding a way to improve yourself or become a better version of yourself, or number 3, be entertained. And we mentioned that if we could accomplish one of those things, then we would consider this podcast a success. Today's podcast, today on, I'm thinking falls in the 3rd category of being entertained. So Dejan Jakovic, center back for LAFC. He has born in Serbia.
Croatia. Born in Croatia.
Hey Vince, we're going to cut that.
Yeah.
Dejan Jakovic, he's born in Croatia, moved to Canada, played in the MLS, obviously plays for Canada's national team, been all around the MLS, and so it's an honor to have him on. Also been to Japan. I'm sure we'll touch on that. But Dejan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure.
Yeah, of course. So today we're going to talk about fantasy sports and why fantasy sports are so appealing to us as competitors, as athletes. And I think my first question, I thought of this on the way over today, is when you were in Japan and you were playing, what did they do in the locker room? Did they have any type of competitions, or for instance, we do March Madness brackets, we do squares for the Super Bowl. Do they have anything in their locker room to go along with any other sport?
No, unfortunately not.
Okay.
We didn't have any kind of fantasy sports.
Did they pay attention to other sports, any American sports? They pay attention to Japanese baseball?
Baseball is very popular.
Yeah.
I would probably say is a little bit more popular than soccer.
Okay.
Baseball was huge, and then I would say soccer was second.
Yeah, I saw the man, the myth, the legend, Ichiro Suzuki finally had his retirement game for the Mariners. That was pretty special. He's quite the athlete there.
He's a
I think
Japanese legend.
We had a conversation about, is he the most famous Japanese athlete of all time? I think he has to be.
He's definitely up there.
At least in the top 2, because I don't know if anyone else.
I would have to agree.
Yeah, so today we're going to touch on fantasy sports, like we mentioned. We want to give you guys kind of a behind-the-scenes look of how our fantasy football season went in the locker room last year. Unfortunately, neither of us made it to the top, but we had good seasons. And I want to start off with the draft. And this year we did a live draft for almost everyone on a road trip. And so we got in, we rushed through our team dinner at the hotel, and we just immediately went up to the training room. Everyone had their computers, spreadsheets, and we were there for, I think, like 2 hours.
At least 2 hours.
At least 2 hours doing the live draft. So I want to talk to you about, one, your draft strategy. You know, is it consistent from year to year? Do you change it up every year? Is it just based on what happens in the draft? And then 2, if you have any recollection of just some really poor moves, really amazing moves from this year's LAFC draft.
Yeah, that's a very good question.
But you don't have to give us all your secrets.
No, definitely not.
Okay.
Can't do that. Some of my strategies are I usually take a quarterback pretty late. I try to stack up on running backs and wide receivers. Because I feel like the production that you get from a quarterback, obviously now, Mahomes was...
Yeah, it was ridiculous. No one could plan for that.
I think the last quarterback to have 50-plus touchdowns was Manning, and Peyton Manning, and he beat that. So usually try to wait on a quarterback. That's.
And then you typically stack running backs, wide receivers. What about tight ends?
Tight ends. So it's a volatile position. You have
3 or 4 main guys who.
You have Ertz.
Yep.
And
Kelsey.
And Kelsey. I would probably rate Kelsey ahead of Ertz.
Okay.
Those are your 1 and 2 tight ends that really produce.
Yeah.
I would say they have the very similar numbers to a wide receiver. tier 1 wide receiver. So I think getting one of those two guys is a big advantage.
Yeah, yeah.
Because after that, it kind of falls off, and it gets a little bit shaky in the later rounds.
Yep. And what number were you? We had a 12-team league this year. What was your draft position?
I believe I had the 8th pick.
Okay. Because I think my draft strategy changes from year to year. And so this year I found myself with a pretty early pick. I was number 3. I think it's the highest I've ever had in a fantasy football season. But we had so many interesting things happen with, do you pick Le'Veon Bell? Jordan took him at 2. Thank goodness he did, so I didn't even have to make that decision.
Very thankful for that.
I had 3, and that put me in a tough spot because you have David Johnson or you have Zeke, and it was pretty much between those two. David Johnson, he had the higher ceiling of, okay, if he returns to what he was 2 seasons ago, you have the best player in the league. Zeke, you know what you're going to get. He's consistent, and so I went out and I took David Johnson. And that really didn't go so well.
Yeah, that was a very tough choice for you.
Yeah.
Because the Cardinals didn't have the
the Cardinals were laughable.
Not a very good offensive line. Just struggled all year, and then
Josh Rosen just didn't produce.
He didn't produce, came in as a rookie, and he was also running for his life most of the time.
Yeah, he definitely was.
That was pretty difficult.
Yeah. I think, and I mentioned my draft strategy changes. I would say I tend to, if I'm a later pick in the first round, in the early second round, I've been known to reach and try and go for the best player in the positions that aren't already picked. So I have reached for Aaron Rodgers followed by a Gronk, or an Aaron Rodgers followed by Kelsey. And I think that strategy has also paid off when you have those back-to-backs.
I like
Which
that.
would be,
I like that.
It'd be against your strategy of the quarterback late.
And sometimes they say when everyone's picking a running back, if you see a lot of running backs going off the table, you go wide receiver.
Yeah, you got to change.
You zig and zag. So that's pretty interesting.
So speaking of our draft strategies, I brought this up to a particular participant in our fantasy league this week, and I made fun of his draft strategy. He didn't really take it very well. This is Jordan Harvey. I hope you're listening. I apologize. But Jordan this year decided to stock up on QBs. And so he ended up drafting 4 quarterbacks.
I can't even remember all of them. I know.
Yeah, I mean, at what point does it matter, though?
Right.
They got to be about the same level.
I know he had Luck.
He did have Andrew Luck.
Who was on his bench for most of the time. And he might have.
Who was his starting quarterback? Oh, Tom Brady. Tom Brady.
Tom Brady was his starter.
Yeah. So I don't know who the other 2 were, but that was an interesting draft strategy. I thought Benny Feilhaber obviously comes in. He thinks he's the most knowledgeable person ever. Oh, I dominated the Kansas City Fantasy League. Well, this is LAFC Fantasy, Benny, and I'm glad that you had to finish last place and pay all of us. So that was really nice of you.
Benny was a little unlucky.
He was unlucky.
I think two of the players that he drafted actually got. I think he had McKinnon from the 49ers who got injured in preseason, so he didn't even get one snap. But
yeah, very unfortunate season for Benny. Let's touch on the season. We had a very interesting draft. I think us 2 in particular walked away pretty satisfied. We get to the season, and I want to touch on. I think this ties into why we love fantasy so much. But the idea that you're rooting for teams that you wouldn't normally root for, players that you wouldn't normally root for, and it makes every single game interesting. That is why I play fantasy sports, for those 3 reasons. Because otherwise, I'm not going to, say I'm a Falcons fan from Atlanta, well, forget all of that when fantasy season is beginning, because if I have, Drew Brees going up against the Falcons, I'm hoping the Falcons get smashed and that Drew Brees just destroys them. So I have no allegiance. It's all for the fantasy team. And I think that's why I love it.
Absolutely, I think it's so much more enjoyable to watch the games when you're rooting for the players that you have. I think when you run into a little bit of trouble is when you're in more than one fantasy leagues, and then you're kind of, you have certain players that you have on your other teams that you're rooting for on this side.
Playing against you.
Right,
yeah.
and then it just complicates things.
Yeah, thankfully I finally cut down to 2 leagues. That was nice.
I think that's a good choice.
So the season begins. I wanna talk about my most memorable moments. I want you to talk about yours. These are the 3 games that I really remember. One is week 2. We had a fantasy football party. We rented out a house, a space for the team to come gather. And the night game that day was the Giants with Evan Ingram, who was my tight end. I think it was against the Cowboys. Can't remember if that was right. But the Giants are playing. So. I only have Evan Ingram left. He needs 8 points. He's gotten like 3 or 4. There's less than a minute left. I think there's 19 seconds left, something like this. And the Giants have been terrible all day, of course. And my only chance is the last snap, and it's for Evan Ingram to catch a touchdown. So obviously, as in all fantasy games, when they line up, you watch your specific player and you just follow him, making his route. So I see Evan Ingram line up, and I'm just locked in on him. Eli snaps the ball, and I just see him run a little post route, or a crossing route right over the middle.
Yeah.
And there's blown coverage on the Cowboys.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, throw him the ball. He catches it, runs into the end zone. I freak out, start running around this space that we've rented out. And Daniel Guzman was just in tears over some text messages because that was the last minute win that you dream about in fantasy sports. So that was probably my favorite moment. I don't know if you had some close games that.
I didn't really have that many close games. I do recall, I think it was Beta.
Yeah.
He was going up against Coop.
Yep.
And what was the final score?
They ended up tying.
It was
which is insane because we had a 10th, scoring. So it's not just whole points; it's to the 10th, and they end up tying the game. It actually played a big role in the playoffs. I snuck in as a 6th seed because Beta had tied, and so I thankfully had the one win ahead of him.
Yeah,
and that's
that
how I got
tie
in.
cost him.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. So that was a crazy moment. The other one for me that sticks out, which probably cost me a higher seed, was playing Jordan Harvey. He has LaShawn McCoy. And again, this is just the garbage time points that can be accumulated in fantasy. But LaShawn McCoy, 4th quarter, he needs 13 points, something ridiculous. So they start driving down the field. He had gotten, a couple. So now it's late in the 4th quarter. He needs 5 or 6 points. We're in a PPR league, and the quarterback just starts dumping the ball to McCoy for little screens every single time. No one's guarding him. The game's over. They're down by 3 touchdowns. And
5 yards. I actually remember this. 5 yards here,
5
4
yards
yards
here, 5 yards there, and then a broken tackle here. He gets 13 yards, and so then it comes down to the last play. It's 4th and 20, and they're going to lose the game, but you would think they would at least try and get the first down. So again, my eyes are locked in. LaShawn McCoy, and they take the snap. Quarterback's looking all the way down the field. LaShawn McCoy is literally on the line of scrimmage, just standing there, waiting. And of course, the quarterback dumps the ball to him, catches it, runs for 6 or 8 yards. I lose by 0.2. And that one
was
really
shocking. That one hurt. It was almost as if he was the only player on the field.
Yeah.
He didn't throw to one wide receiver, not to the tight end. He was,
Yeah. And so certainly that brings me to the team banter aspect of fantasy sports. And one of the reasons I chose to have you on the show is because I feel like every morning in fantasy season, I could walk up to your locker and, as Callum would say, Dejan Mustard, tee-hee-hee, Dejan Mustard is 6-3. And I would call out your fantasy record every single week, every day, and we would just say, some crazy predictions for the week. You heard it here first. Matt Ryan, top 10 fantasy QB. Make predictions. We'd talk about the weekend's events, and we'd spend our days looking at the waiver and seeing how we can make our team better. So that's one of the reasons why I had you on, is because you're always in tune, even to the point where I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to embarrass you a little bit.
Oh.
So one morning, Dejan shows up at breakfast. This is almost a finable offense. Shows up at breakfast, and Benny comes up, and he says, hey, this has to be a spin, guys. We're like, what? What's going on? He looks at Dejan, and he says,
Try to call me out.
Did you set an alarm for when the waiver wire opens in fantasy football? And Dejan denies it, but right at 2 o'clock, conveniently, Dejan had to go to the bathroom. But
it's a lot later than the...
Is it 3 o'clock? What time is the waiver wire?
I don't even know.
You would know the time.
I actually don't know the time.
Okay.
Okay.
So Dejan wakes up middle of the night to go to the bathroom, gets his waiver wire picks, and it's still up for debate.
It's very questionable. He tried to call me out. He's like, let me see your alarm clock. That's
true.
He looked at the phone, it was not there.
That is true. That's a good defense for sure. Oh,
that was pretty funny though.
That is great.
A lot of trades took place in the locker room.
Yeah. What do you think? Good, bad? What do you got?
Some good ones, some really questionable ones.
Some that had to be vetoed.
Some definitely had to be vetoed. I know a trade that really helped me out. I needed a running back desperately, and I ended up getting Sony Michel from Benny for Nunua, who did start off hot.
That is robbery.
But then
that is robbery.
Kind of fell off down the stretch, picked up some knocks, and Sony balled out for me.
Yeah, I tell you what, that reminds me. I've had some good trades, some bad, but I feel like my biggest mistake is I have really good drafts. And week 1, I typically jump to conclusions about my players and make some poor trades. And so this year, it was Matt Ryan had a bad week 1, and Tom Brady had a good week. And so I'm thinking to myself, I have very good players in all my other positions. Maybe I try and go for Tom Brady. So I trade away Matt Ryan, some other bench wide receiver for Tom Brady, some bench wide receiver from Jordan. And Matt Ryan, of course, goes on to become a top 5 fantasy QB. Tom just does ho-hums his way to another Super Bowl, but didn't really have the season that I was expecting. The only time I remember making a worse trade was a couple years ago. No Sean Marino goes off for 24 points in week 1. Antonio Brown also went off. And so I had no Sean. My friend has I have Antonio Brown. My friend has no Sean. We trade. We swap. Straight swap. First play of the next game, no Sean breaks his leg. And he's done for the season. Antonio Brown becomes, most points as a wide receiver. And those moments just become...
I think that's where a lot of fantasy players tend to make mistakes where they draft their team and then their player doesn't do too hot and they panic.
Yeah, I do.
They panic. And I remember actually Benny almost traded Kelsey away. He had the first 2 weeks where he did poorly. I think he had like 7 points, which is just not what he was expecting for a top tight end, and held on to him. And then he ended up going off and finished as the #1 tight end in fantasy. So it's sometimes you gotta wait a little bit. Trust the players, and yeah.
That's good advice. Well, I want to move on, getting further away from our locker room fantasy season and get straight to the playoffs of fantasy football. I mentioned I had become a 6 seed. Were you a 5 seed? Did you make the playoffs?
I did make the playoffs.
Yeah, as a 5 seed. Or no,
fourth seed.
Yeah, because you played Coop. So I tried to get onto our ESPN fantasy app. Unfortunately, it was all gone. I couldn't go back and look. But this comes down to another very poor play from me. I make it to the semifinals, and I have 1 player left. I need 7 points. I have two wide receivers I can choose from, Devin Funchess or Golden Tate. And I blew it. I picked Devin Funchess, not knowing Cam Newton had a hurt shoulder, not realizing he had, not played as much.
And did Tate ended up going off?
Tate ended up getting, I think, 9 or 10 out of 1, gone to the final, and lost in the semis. So I'm still yet to win a fantasy league. Have you ever won?
I won a couple.
A couple?
Yeah, a couple. 10-man league with friends back home in Toronto. But yeah, I haven't. I mean, I think this is my 5th year doing fantasy football.
And you won a couple.
I won a couple. So I haven't been doing it for a really long time. This
is my 6th, and I haven't won yet. So maybe that tells me something about myself as a manager.
It's not good enough.
No, it's not good.
It's not good
It's
enough.
really not good. I think I made the playoffs like 3 times. So I'm batting like
Okay,
50%.
Okay.
But
I mean, I thought you had a
it
pretty
was a
good
good
team.
year. It was a
You
good
had
year.
a good year,
It was
yeah.
a good year. So hats off to Scotty Miguel, public shout out. They won our league. They're our equipment managers. Provided great banter throughout Fantasy Football League. So congrats to them. Looking ahead, 2019, we've seen a lot of movement in the offseason, more than I think we've ever seen in an offseason in terms of big name players. Who do you like? What moves did you like to see? What's your outlook for both fantasy, and then we'll get into rating our playoff teams. But first, players, who did you like to see moved? What are you thinking for fantasy 2019?
I think the most shocking one is Odell Beckham.
Has to be.
I mean, that was kind of out of nowhere. I think it's a massive addition to the Browns, and actually I have them winning the AFC North because of this move.
Wow.
I think Baker Mayfield's a very good young quarterback who I believe set a record with touchdowns for as a rookie. And Nick Chubb.
Yep.
Very good.
Yep.
They still have Landry, who probably will move into the slot now that
Which could be dangerous.
Very dangerous,
you know?
because I feel like defenses were kind of targeting him. They didn't. Now that Odell's there, he's going to have a little bit more freedom. And also, an interesting player they acquired, Hunt.
Yeah, Kareem Hunt. I tell you
Who
what,
was suspended for the first 8 games.
He's going to make them better as well.
Yeah. So offensively, defensively, they're still very sound. I don't know.
All right, so you heard it here first. The Browns winning the AFC North. Yeah. What other players you got? We got some other big moves. We talked today briefly. You know, the Bills, the Jets. Some of these teams some of these teams that did not have good seasons last year picked up some big names. And do you have any of those teams, Jets, Bills, improving enough to make the playoffs?
No. Not enough to make the playoffs. I think Le'Veon Bell is a huge addition to the Jets.
Does he produce at the same level that he did with the Steelers?
No chance.
Okay.
No chance, because you have to look at the Steelers' offensive line as still one of the best in the league, and I think it's not going to be the same situation for him. He's going to get the touches. He's going to get the carries. He's going to be a safety blanket, but it's just not enough. You got to remember also offensively, the Steelers were much better than the Jets.
Yeah.
The timeshare of
I think my question mark about the Jets is you got a guy in Sam Darnold who had his moments, ups and downs.
I thought he was decent.
And you look at a guy like Mitchell Trubisky, what he did in his second year. And so I'm also wondering if you see how the Bears went from 2 years ago to last season, and it seems like it could be kind of similar to what the Jets are capable of. I don't know that Sam Darnold will have as good as a year as Mitchell Trubisky. Obviously, the Jets' defense might not be as good as the Bears, but that's a team I'm definitely gonna keep my eye on.
That's a valid point.
So let's make some predictions. I got mine written down here. I want to talk, who are your playoff teams, who makes it to the Super Bowl, and who is your Super Bowl winner for this next season?
So I got to go with the Pats. I mean,
to win?
No.
Okay, to win their division.
To win their division.
Okay.
But Tom Brady hasn't showed any signs of slowing down. Still have Bill Belichick.
And Gronk's gone.
It's a big loss, but they just won. The division is not very good. It's a very bad division, and they always find a way to win. They always Belichick always finds a way to
out-scheme,
out-coach, take away the best player from the other team, and kind of mask their just weaknesses. So taking them in the East, like I said, I have the Browns in the AFC North. Steelers, we didn't talk about Antonio Brown.
Yeah.
Going to Oakland.
Yeah, another huge move.
So they lose Bell, they lose Brown.
Yeah.
Those are two studs right there.
Ben's got to be on maybe his last season, maybe one more after this, but yeah, definitely on the back end.
So Brown's there. You know what team I really like? I like the Colts.
I'm high on the Colts as well.
I think Luck's a year away from his big shoulder injury that was a little scary at the beginning of the year. Couldn't throw it.
Yeah,
Longer than 30 yards.
I think he's going to have quite the season.
Picked up your boy Funchess.
Yeah,
big body.
He's never been that productive, but we'll see.
I like the running back there, Mack.
Yeah,
Mack was a little injury at the beginning. Showed a
lot of promise.
Showed a lot of promise towards the end. Still a great defense. AFC West. I have the Chiefs. Although you do kind of have to keep an eye on the whole Tyreek Hill situation.
How that goes.
I don't know what's gonna happen. Now this is NFC East. I'm gonna go with the Cowboys, even though the Eagles have made a lot of off-season acquisitions on the defensive side. NFC North, I'm still gonna go with the Bears. I think they're just gonna get better offensively.
Breakout player for me last year for them, Tariq Cohen.
Yeah, where did he come out of?
I think no idea.
I think it's the whole scheme with Nagy with the
Jordan Howard declined and Tariq Cohen became such a threat in that short passing game.
Because he's able to catch out of the backfield, something that
I like the
struggles
Bears.
with. Yeah,
I like the Bears.
Bears are very good, and then NFC West. I'm still gonna go with the Rams. I know that it was a very disappointing Super Bowl for them. Managed to score only 3 points. That's
Funny enough, we didn't talk about this before, but we have the same teams winning the divisions. 8 for 8. So that takes out a lot of controversy. I have my wild cards in the AFC. I like the Chargers. I think they're still going to be good. Melvin Gordon, I hope, comes back healthy.
That's who I have.
Yep, Chargers. And I like the Ravens as maybe a 5 or 6. Lamar Jackson did well when he took over. My concern for him is obviously ball security, fumbles, taking care of the football, but I think he's dynamic enough to make that offense good enough to make the playoffs.
Very interesting. The only thing I have the Chargers, agree with everything, and I have the Texans.
Yeah.
I don't know if the Ravens have enough. They did acquire Mark Ingram, which is a solid running back, but that's gonna need to be a really huge jump for Lamar.
Yeah.
And I think he struggled throwing the ball last year, obviously with the.
And didn't Terrell Suggs leave?
They left. C.J. Mosley left, went to the Jets. So, I'll be.
Yeah, and then I have in the NFC, I like the Packers to bounce back. I just believe in Aaron Rodgers. I believe he's always good enough to make a team get to the playoffs. And I got the Seahawks. I know you love Russell Wilson as a fantasy quarterback.
I like him as a real life
human as well.
Real life human, yeah. I have the Eagles.
Okay.
I have the Eagles and I have the 49ers.
That is a big turnaround.
They picked up D Ford from the Chiefs. We're desperate for a pass rusher.
Garoppolo bounces back.
Garoppolo comes back. Picked up Tevin Coleman from the Falcons. The only thing that worries me a little bit is the wide receivers. Garcon retired, but I also really, really like their tight end, Kittle.
Yeah,
he had a breakout year last year. I think he was the third tight end in fantasy. So
now give me your Super Bowl. Who's the matchup? Who wins it?
It's tough. I really don't want to say the Pats.
But are you going to?
But I'm not going to.
Thank you.
I'm not going with the Pats. I'm going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs.
I like that pick.
If all goes well, and I think the Rams come back.
Yeah, this is ridiculous. We have the same Super Bowl.
I think the Rams come back. I think.
Can they win that game? Or do you have the Chiefs winning?
I'm gonna have the Rams winning. They get Cooper Kupp back.
Yep.
And the one thing that scares me about the Rams is Gurley and his arthritis and his health. Yeah.
Well, funny enough, I have a Chiefs-Rams Super Bowl. Rams winning. This is not just because we're from LA. But granted, we also are not experts. We just like to talk.
Not at all.
We like to talk other sports. We like to have little jokes. But you heard it here first. Rams winning the Super Bowl. So if you like that comment, please remember to rate, comment, subscribe to The Locker Room, where you can hear more predictions about things that we know nothing about, but pretend to. So Rams winning the Super Bowl. Let's go to March Madness. And this is where we're going to get some behind the scenes again. We mentioned we have a fantasy league. We like to have the Squares game for the Super Bowl and other big events. March Madness is definitely an event that we like to take somewhat seriously in the locker room. I think this year we have probably close to 30 brackets that people filled out between staff and team. And right now, Sweet 16 starts back up today. And we have basically some front runners. Steven Beitashour off to a really hot start, got 15 of 16 Sweet 16 teams. He's in the lead. Dejan is close behind. I think you're at 52 points.
Yeah.
So you're, how many Sweet 16 teams did you get? 14 of 16?
I think, 14.
Yeah, so Dejan is 14 of 16. I also have 14 of 16 teams going through. And so I'm in fourth, Dejan's in third. And I think it's going to be really exciting to watch this Sweet 16. I think there's a lot of teams that were expected to make it there that did. The only one that I think was kind of out there for me was Oregon. I didn't see them making the Sweet 16.
No,
Yeah.
I did not.
Yeah, so I missed that one. The other one I missed, I took a gamble on Iowa State, beating Ohio State and then beating Houston. I didn't know that Houston could have the firepower.
I definitely had Houston there.
Did you miss? Did you get the Auburn, Kansas? That was a big miss for a lot of guys.
I have Auburn.
I did as well.
I have Auburn.
So your miss was Oregon, and
so I had Buffalo beating Texas Tech.
Okay, that's fair.
Missed out on that, and
In Oregon.
Yeah, and then the Elite Eight, I actually have Michigan State. This is what it comes down to for me. I think I have Michigan State beating Duke.
Wow, that's
I have Michigan State winning it all.
I mean, you gotta think if they can beat Duke there, then
right.
They got to be able to make a run. That's gonna be huge for you. I mean, a lot of people have Duke all the way through. I know you were rooting for Duke to lose that close game last week, but I think Duke still feels like a front runner for me.
Absolutely.
I personally didn't want to pick them to win the whole thing because of trying to win the bracket.
Exactly. That's why.
So who's your Final Four? What do you have? You said Michigan State winning.
I have Michigan State, Michigan, Virginia, and North Carolina. And then I have Michigan State beating North Carolina in the finals.
Okay. Yeah. So that's going to be that UNC Kentucky potentially is a game that could matter. I went a different way. Like we said, I think strategically when you do a March Madness bracket, if you pick the absolute favorite that everyone's going to pick, you almost have to have the best bracket otherwise. So I took a chance. I didn't pick Duke, but I did put them in the final because I think they're that good that they're going to get there. My winning team is Virginia, which I don't know if I feel great about at this point. I have LSU over Michigan State. I think that could be LSU's looks pretty good.
Big pick, yeah.
I have Kentucky over UNC. So I think there's enough variance in those games to where one or two things happen. I think it could be in a good spot. Game to watch today: Florida State Gonzaga. I guess this actually airs tomorrow, so we'll know the results. But that's a big one for Beta, who's in the lead. Picked Florida State to go through, so we'll stay tuned for that. Now to where we like to have a lot of banter, and this is where I think we really know nothing about. this is the NBA.
Speak for yourself.
Speak for yourself.
No,
I don't know much about the NBA. All I know is about LeBron James. He's the GOAT for me. King James, now in LA. That makes me really happy. So people make fun of me for my fandom of LeBron. I was a Cavs fan, then I became a Heat fan, then a Cavs fan again, and now I'm a Lakers fan. I'm diehard on all those.
Hard not to like LeBron.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, hey, he's definitely well, I don't know about now, but he's been the best basketball player for a while now.
Yeah.
And
what else can you say about him?
You can't say anything. He's a perfect role model on the field, off the field.
The I Promise School was really cool what he's done back
Absolutely.
in Akron. Yeah, so it's great to see athletes taking their influence, like we said last episode, about being more than an athlete, more than an entertainer. So you'd love to see guys who are, in the biggest spotlight of all, guys like LeBron James, taking that platform, using it in the right way, and creating the I Promise School, giving back to his community in Akron. It's an amazing, amazing thing for him. And unfortunately for the Lakers, we can't root for them in the playoffs this year. But there's just no way in my mind that they're going to miss the playoffs next year. I think they'll make the right moves, get another big signing. And I think LeBron can have another really good year, a couple years ahead of him. So I like the Lakers back next year, but we're talking about this year. We're talking about the 2019 NBA playoffs. And we are going to rank and kind of do a mock playoff bracket for the rest of the NBA postseason, which is going to begin here in a few weeks. And so we're going to use our rankings based off of today's rankings or yesterday's rankings. So I'll pass it on to you. I want you to start in the East.
In the East, okay.
And I want you to give me, who's gonna move on. If the playoffs were today, you can bring up the matchups, who you like, and then I'll go to the East, and then we'll move on to the West.
Okay. So obviously the one seed, the Milwaukee Bucks, who have the best record in the NBA and probably the MVP in
you think?
Greek Freak Giannis. Yeah, I think so. But there's an interesting statistic. I think in the last 30 years, there hasn't been a player that hasn't at least been a second seed to win the MVP. So that works in his favor. I know Harden's up there, averaging 36 points per game. You can't.
See, because I want to take that comment, and we'll talk about this MVP race for a second, because I think it's an interesting conversation. Yeah. So I agree, that's a pretty good stat. What I always think of in an MVP, and what's actually frustrated me in years past, because I'm a LeBron fan, I always think he's the MVP, is MVPs have to have a specific thing about them that is it's never been done. It's like they've done something new. So I look at Russell Westbrook when he wins, it's the triple-double. Right,
so, and that's the one. So he was an eighth seed.
Yeah,
and because he averaged a triple double.
So he ended up again, because he does something that's never been done. Then you have, Stephen Curry when he had his ridiculous year of 3-pointers. So that's crazy. Then you had James Harden last year, and what he did with. I don't know what his crazy stat was, but I think for this year the crazy stat would be the 32 consecutive games over 30. Right. I think that is the thing. That's going to be his best chance of getting MVP is like, hey, I just went the new 30 for 30, as we've heard all about on all these radio shows. That's something that's never been done. I think that's enough to where people can look at Giannis's numbers and be like, yeah, that's incredible, but
here's my take on Giannis. They were a 7th seed last year, and they're the best team in basketball right now. They have the best record. He's the main player on that team. He's their most valuable player.
And it goes to the age-old debate. It goes to the age-old debate. Is it the best player on the best team, or is it the most valuable player in the league?
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, you have an argument. You can say he's the most valuable player on his team. If you take him off, are they first in the league? I don't know. So it's. I think it's going to be very close.
Interesting. I'm gonna predict Harden.
Okay. I'm gonna go with Giannis, but I wouldn't be mad if Harden. Harden won.
Yeah.
Because I think
fair enough. That run was crazy.
Exactly. Okay, so I'm gonna take the Bucks.
Yep.
So if it starts right now, it would be Orlando.
Which props to Orlando for even being in this position. That was kind of a surprise for me.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's between them, Miami, and I don't know
Charlotte.
And Charlotte.
Yep.
I don't think it really matters who ends up taking that 8th seed. I'm gonna take the Bucks there. Then here's my team, the Raptors.
Okay.
Okay, this is my team. I know that they've struggled in the past. I know a lot of players and people. I don't know if you heard this. They call Toronto LeBronto because LeBron James just absolutely owns the Toronto Raptors.
Well, he owns everyone else in the East as well.
Exactly.
I love LeBronto. I love that.
So I really like them. I like Kawhi Leonard, the Claw. I think he's probably the best two-way player. They have a very deep team. Danny Green and Kawhi Leonard are both champions with the Spurs. I have them beating the Detroit. I have Philly beating Brooklyn, and then this is where it gets a little tough between the Pacers and the Celtics. I don't know. They're both very inconsistent. I honestly don't know. I'm gonna go with the Celtics, but I think it's very impressive what the Pacers have done after losing their star player Oladipo. So yeah, I'm gonna go with the Celtics there, I have to go. I'm gonna take the Raptors coming out of the East into the finals.
All right, so I'll do the same thing. I agree, Milwaukee. There's no way they lose to the 8th seed over a series. I also have Toronto going through. Philly, I think is, along with Boston, one of the most interesting teams in the East because if they have everything clicking, I think they can beat anyone in the East.
Absolutely.
They have the firepower, they have the star power. It's just, can they get Simmons and Embiid, Jimmy Butler, can they get them working together as the playoffs approach? And I think if they win that first round series, which I expect them to, I think that could give them some good momentum maybe moving into the next series.
I agree. I think Embiid is the best center in the league right now. I think he's the most dominant center. And they have a very good team, a very good starting five. The only thing that scares me a little bit is their bench, but yeah.
Okay. So I also like Boston. I think I just think their playoff experience from last year, and I think it's really going to help them. I think Kyrie's going to be playoff Kyrie. I hope he untucks his jersey and can make something happen.
Here's what I have something for you. So they went really far without Kyrie.
Yeah. I think Kyrie helps them.
You think Kyrie helps them? Okay. I like Kyrie.
So then moving on, I think it's going to be actually Philly winning that Toronto series. So I have Milwaukee is going to beat Boston. And then I have Philly over Toronto.
Okay, because I think Toronto, the winner of the Toronto series would play. So Toronto would play Philly, and you have Philly beating Toronto.
I have Philly beating Toronto. I think it's gonna go late, probably 7 games.
7 games.
And I think that in Game 7, I think the star power of the 3 from Philly, I think that's their game, and that's their breakout moment. So I still have Milwaukee. I like them to move forward. I think, like you said, they've been the best team all year, so I'm gonna take Milwaukee out of the East. Which good for the city of Milwaukee, man. Good for the Bucks.
Yeah.
What a turnaround for them.
They are a little banged up, but yeah. I mean, why not?
Why not? Take
the
one
best
seed.
team.
Yeah.
The best team.
Why not? So let's hear your Western Conference predictions here.
Out in the West, I like the Spurs, man. I like Greg Popovich. I think I'm not. No. I'm not taking the Spurs.
You heard it here first.
I'm not taking the Spurs to beat Golden State. I'm just saying I like Greg Popovich. I think he's the best coach in the league right now. Obviously, can't take them to beat beat the Warriors. I have the Warriors. They're just too strong. This Denver-Oklahoma City series will be interesting. I really like what Denver's done. They almost made the playoffs last year. They were, I think, like one game short. And to see what they've done this year and finish as the second seed in the West is very
It's surprising
impressive.
to me after the All-Star break. I thought the Warriors were going to create some separation.
Right.
And it really, I mean, it could still go either way.
The problem with them is they have no playoff experience.
Yeah.
I think there's only Millsap, the starter on their team, that has any playoff experience.
So I'm
still gonna take them to beat Oklahoma City just because they've kind of struggled since the All-Star break. I know Paul George is in MVP conversations as well. He's kind of dropped off a little bit for me. I don't think they have enough to beat Denver. Portland, Utah, also another very close series. I don't know if you saw Nurkic, the center,
huge.
that broke his leg.
Huge
That's a very big loss for them. I don't know if they're able to overcome that. He's a pretty big piece for them. But then Utah, it's just Mitchell. That's the only player they have offensively. And if he doesn't get the points, if he doesn't score, they struggle. I'm still gonna go with Portland. I think Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. I think they're ballers. I'm gonna take them there, and then I'm gonna take Houston to beat LA.
Yeah, almost. If I'm the LA Clippers, I'm trying to drop a couple of games so I don't have to play Houston.
Yeah, I don't know if they are because they're on a roll.
Yeah,
they're actually on a roll. They're just balling out. They have Gallinari, the Italian stallion over there. Lou Williams, who's...
Hey, he went to South Gwinnett High School. Fun fact, about 20 minutes from my house growing up. So I remember gyms. I was a little kid. Gyms were just like packed out watching this guy play. And so it's nice to see him have the most success or most points in NBA history off the bench, I think is what I just saw. So crazy. He's a local kid.
I don't know if you heard this. This is an interesting story about him. Somebody drew a gun.
I read this the other day,
Gun at him on the street, and he managed to talk him out, and then ended up
taking him
to McDonald's.
Yeah.
And ended up talking for another 2 hours at McDonald's with them.
Oh, that's amazing.
Crazy.
That's amazing.
So out in the West, I'm taking the Rockets to beat Golden State.
Goodness.
I think that last year they went to Game 7. I think if they had Chris Paul,
they win that.
They win that, and he's back. He's healthy. Capella's back, healthy, playing really well. I really like the Rockets. I just hope that we get the same James Harden in the playoffs, because that's
the X factor.
That's X factor. That's where a lot of people kind of talk down on James Harden. Hasn't been the best playoff performer. So I really hope he does well. And I think we've seen this year that Golden State is beatable. I don't know. I don't know if Boogie Cousins is the answer. I don't think they're as good as last year. So yeah, I'm gonna take the Rockets.
Wow.
Over the Warriors, and then I'm taking Houston.
Wow. That's a big shock.
I know, it is a shock.
I was almost going to ask the question prior to hearing your predictions of do you take Golden State versus the field if you're a betting man? But clearly you think Houston can beat Golden State. I think they can. I don't know. I just think they're going to have the most perfect series to make it happen.
I agree.
Which, I mean, hats off to them for taking them to 7 games. They almost got it done, not quite enough. But I like Golden State over San Antonio. I like Denver beating OKC. I think Portland, beats Utah. Houston over the Clippers. I like all the high seeds to go through.
Yeah.
I really don't enjoy rooting for Golden State, especially being a LeBron fan and the history now that they've had. It just irks me to root for them. I'm going to take them still coming out of the West. I think they're just, I think KD's going to have a big postseason. Steph Curry's been, ridiculous. And then you got 5 All-Stars on the floor in their starting lineup. So I like Golden State. Got them in the final against Milwaukee. And as much as it pains me, I have to
You have the
take
Warriors.
them.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people do have the Warriors.
It's not what I want to say. It's not what my heart wants. It's not what my gut wants, but I think it's what my head is saying.
Here's the thing with the Warriors is they just have so many great players on the court that if one struggles, if Steph Curry's struggling,
No problem.
Durant can go off. Even if Durant's struggling, you have Klay Thompson who can drop 40.
Yeah.
And it's just like so many weapons, and they're unselfish.
Yeah.
They move the ball. I'm taking Houston, but I can easily see
Yeah.
the Warriors being champions again.
No, I love that. So that's going to conclude our predictions. Again, we aren't claiming that we know everything about these sports. We just like to joke about it, talk about it, have fun with it. Hope you guys were entertained. Please follow the locker room, your hashtag LAFCPodFam. I know there's a lot of great podcasts that LAFC are putting out, and so we just appreciate the support here at the locker room. Dejan, thank you so much for being a part of this and for giving me all of your wisdom and for that draft strategy in fantasy football. I might have to use that this next year.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Love the show.
And you heard it here first, the Houston Rockets winning the playoffs.
That's what's up.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Boom.
Is that good?
Great.